Stocks on Wall Street end mixed with the S&P 500 declining for the fourth straight session. The Nasdaq also underperformed as tech names slide. July Fed minutes show most officials are worried more about inflation moving higher. Asian markets barring Japan have begun the day higher following overnight cues from Wall Street. The GIFT Nifty, though, is indicating a subdued start on the weekly options expiry day. Oil prices climb about 2% on a bigger than expected weekly drop in US crude inventories. Traders are also monitoring a progress towards a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Gold prices hold firm as the dollar continues to weaken. Investors are also keeping an eye off the Jackson Hole summit. The GST group of ministers has proposed exempting health and life insurance premiums from GST. Some states have deferred. The GST Council will take the final call. And minutes of the monetary policy meeting of the RBI shows that the six-member committee is divided on growth. External members express apprehensions over tariffs and other external uncertainties, but the panel is united in adopting a quote-unquote wait-and-watch stance. A very important session beckons for us. We'll bring you everything that you need to know in the next 30 minutes. You're watching Power Breakfast right here on CNBC TV 18 in the Mumbai News Centre. I'm Hormuz Fatakia. Let's first take a look at how the Asian markets have started off. And barring the Japanese markets, it's a fairly okay-ish start for the Asian screen. The Taiwanese index, which was an underperformer yesterday, is up 1.5%. The Hang Seng continues to remain around the flat line. The KOSPI was down around 2.5% yesterday. That is clawing back some of those losses. That's trading with gains of almost 1% now. The Shanghai Composite is trading 0.3% higher. The only underperformance is coming from the Nikkei, which is 0.5% lower currently. It was declining yesterday as well. Some weak macro data coming in for the regards to the exports front in Japan, and that has weighed on sentiments on the markets over there, and that is why they are extending yesterday's losses, while most of the other indices are clawing back some of those declines. But pull up the GIFT Nifty. That will give you a flavor of how our own markets are likely to start off. Well, coming on the back of a 5-day winning streak. The implied open is currently suggesting a subdued start. Mind you, today is the weekly options expiry, so we need to factor that in as well. But to set you up for today's trade, our research team is now joining in with how the trade setup looks like, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and of course the setup on the F&O side of things as well. First up, Vinny is here to get us all the market cues we need to watch out for today. Vinny, good morning. Finally a close above 25,000, but a lot of important cues that you are tracking this morning.
Absolutely. Hormaz, good morning. And finally, a close about 25,000. Hoping that continues today as well. But taking those cues, US market mixed signals that we're picking up, right? Dow Jones closed almost flattish, but Nasdaq and S&P 500 again saw a fall coming in. What we're seeing is that, important retailers who reported their earnings, Target, Home Depot, they've given a bit of a mixed signal in terms of holiday season, the demand there for that as well. So that could see some impact that could come in for our Indian textile players as well, because if the demand is weak, then that could be a concern for Indian players. Now, Fed has given a lot of updates that is coming on there. 1 minute of the Fed July meeting showed that policy makers were worried about the state of labor market as well as inflation. So that's a key point there. And Fed Governor Lisa Cook also said that she will not be bullied into stepping down, because of Trump's administration or anything on that front. Now, obviously, Jackson Hole Symposium, that is something that is going on. So we'll keep an eye out on updates that could come in from that front as well. FIIs in the Indian market continue to be sellers yesterday as well. 1,100 crores around was the sell coming in from FIIs, while DIIs were buyers, 1,800 crores approximately. Now, important cues, Nifty weekly expiry, so we could see some bit of a volatility on that front. We are watching out for the OFS that will be happening in India Cements. Keep an eye on that. We have a Clean Sciences block deal that will be happening today, so important to keep an eye out on this stock as well. Vedanta again could be in focus today. The board is to consider that second interim dividend, so key to watch out for that one. Other than that, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, who is in Russia, will be holding some talks with Foreign Minister. Any update or any deals on that front will be key to watch out for. FM Nirmala Sitharaman will be meeting the group of ministers for rate rationalization, so that is key to watch out for. And like I said, Jackson Hole Symposium, the summit that is going on there, any updates on that front. Like we said, 25,000 is what Nifty closed at yesterday. As of now, Nifty implied open open, indicating a muted to a slight bit of a positive bias is what we're seeing coming in. But keep an eye out on that. 6.7 points uptick is what the Nifty implied open is indicating.
A flat start is what the implied open is suggesting. Winnie, thank you for that. Over to Upasna now. List out the stocks that you need to keep an eye out for today. Upasna, good morning. What's on your list?
Good morning. First up, of course, will be India Cements as Ultratech Cement to sell 6.5% stake in the company via OFS, which is scheduled on 21st to 22nd of August. And the floor price is set at 368 per share. Next up is RailTel. The company has received order from Kerala State Information Technology for projects worth 35 crores. Next up is Jupiter Wagons on our radar as the company gets LOI worth 215 crore for supply of wheel sets for Vande Bharat train. Next up is Godrej Properties as well, as companies entered into an agreement to acquire 7% equity stake of Godrej Skyline Developers. Next up is CAMS as well, as the company has received RBI nod for transferring online payment aggregator business of the company to CAMS Payment Services, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the company. Fedback Financial Services also on our radar, as the board meeting is scheduled on 25th of August to consider and approve issue of NCDs worth nearly about 2,500 crores. Next up is Ajanta Pharma, as IT department has conducted a search on 19th of August and is currently ongoing is what the company has indicated. But they have also mentioned that the operations in the company right now continue to remain stable. Now, on the back of bulk deal, V-Guard and HCZ also will remain in focus, as both the promoters have sold 1% stake individually. And lastly, Clean Science Technology, according to sources, both the promoters, that is Krishna and Ashok, likely to sell about 24% stake in the company via block deal, and offer sizes around 2,626 crores and floor price at nearly about 13% discount to the current market price. So all in all, looks like quite a power pack day today.
Oh, indeed. And a lot of block deals, promoters selling stake, offers for sale. There is a lot to track. Upasna, thank you for that update. Sudarshan finally joins in with cues from the FNO space. Sudarshan, good morning. Now, what is the FNO data now indicating? Do we sustain above 25,000 today?
Good morning, Harma. So finally 25,000 on the board at the close. So two headlines, if I can talk about from the data that we have. First one, all the data is indicating that Nifty is going to expire in the range of 24,900, 25,000, mostly above 25,000. And the cues that we are getting from FIs remain muted because they remain on the sell side, both in the cash as well as derivative market. But first, talk about yesterday's session. Support came from two sectors. Those are IT and FMCG. The biggest Nifty gainer was Infosys, and after it was followed by stocks like Nestle and HUL that have helped Nifty close about 25,000, but outperformance by mid-cap index continued, and that was the reason market breadth was in favor of advances. Now coming to GIFT Nifty, it's indicating a start with like muted start, currently up around 10 points. As far as flows are concerned, yesterday we saw FIs have sold more than rupees 1,100 crore, DIs have bought more than rupees 1,800 crore, even the index futures FIs have sold more than rupees 300 crore. They have added minor long positions of around 700 contracts, but also they have added short positions of more than 2,300 contracts, and FI long exposure remains around 10%. As far as the options data are concerned, on the call side, 25,000 and 25,050 calls were the most active ones, and on the put side, 25,000 and again 25,050. Sorry, on the call side, 25,100 was the most active one. That's the reason support remains around 24,900, and resistance has moved higher in the range of 25,120 to 25,150. Stocks in the band, two stocks that were in the band, they remain in the band, and those are Titagar and RBL Bank. PG Electroplast had come out of the band yesterday and now is back in the band. And apart from these stocks, I'll keep an eye on HUL. So you are seeing a big buying in FMCG names, and one company that had reported a healthy set of earnings and seeing the biggest buying in HUL. So keep an eye on that. And second name is from Insurance Pack. I'll keep an eye on LIC after the commentary that you have got from group of ministers.
We have to keep an eye out on LIC and the insurance space as well. So Darshan, thank you for that update. Take a short break. On the other side, we get you updates from the RBI and the Federal Reserve's latest policy meeting minutes. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, the minutes of the last monetary policy meeting appear to show some difference of opinion within the 6-member committee on growth. The MPC decided to maintain a status quo. Remember, at the last policy meeting, the RBI members on the panel appear largely sanguine about growth while highlighting the external uncertainties. But the external members appeared more worried about the impact of tariffs on growth. But all the members are united in adopting a quote-unquote wait-and-watch stance and to retain some firepower. Here's external MPC member Nagesh Kumar on the trade tensions and how that could impact growth going forward.
I mean, this is what we discussed, and we thought, let the data come. And so it was too early to say that growth will be hit by how much and inflation will be remaining in restrained manner. And so we thought we need to pause for this moment and let the data come in, and that shows the way.
Shifting focus to Wall Street now, and the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq continued to fall on Wednesday, although the indices recovered from the lows of the day. And this was after the tech decline continued for the 4th straight session. Now, investors also weighed mixed earnings from the retail segment and the latest minutes from the Fed's policy. Now, CNBC's Christina Partsin-Ivlos gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were down across the major indices in Wednesday trading after a broad decline in tech stocks for the 2nd straight day. The Dow did close up 16 points. The S&P 500 was down 16 and the tech-heavy Nasdaq falling 142. Minutes released Wednesday from the Federal Reserve's July meeting showed tariffs were a central part of the discussion, with officials worried also about the labor market and inflation, with most Fed governors, though, agreeing that it was still too soon to lower rates. But you had 2 governors who disagreed, voting to cut rates, and that's the first time that's happened in more than 30 years. According to the actual minutes, participants saw risks to both sides of their dual mandate, which is achieving maximum employment as well as price stability, and pointing to the current upside risk of inflation and downside risk to employment. Rental car giant Hertz announced Wednesday it's going to sell its used rental cars on Amazon. It allows Amazon Auto customers to browse thousands of its pre-owned vehicles, make a purchase, and then pick up their vehicle at a Hertz location. For now, the service is only going to be available to people who live within 75 miles of Dallas, Houston, Los Angeles, and Seattle. But Hertz says it will eventually expand to 45 locations nationwide. That is what's happening here in the United States. Back to you in Mumbai.
Christina, thank you for that update. Now, the July Fed minutes have shown that officials are worried more about the state of the inflation more than the labor market, although most agreed that it was too soon to lower interest rates. CNBC's Iman Jawar brings us the latest on this.
Fed minutes indicate a somewhat divided open market committee here. Here's what they say from this July meeting. Participants generally pointed to risks to both sides of the committee's dual mandate. A majority, they say, of participants judged the upside risk to inflation as the greater of the 2 risks. Remember, it's inflation versus jobs for the Fed. Several participants, however, viewed the 2 risks as roughly balanced, and a couple of participants considered downside risk to employment to be the more salient risk. So choose your own adventure here on the Fed in terms of what's the biggest threat out there. In terms of the fundamentals, they say inflation somewhat above the 2% goal, unemployment rate remains low, employment at or near estimates of maximum employment. Remember, this is before that big jobs revision that we saw a little bit after this meeting in July. Uncertainty about economic outlook remains elevated here, and some participants mentioned indicators could suggest a softening in labor demand. So maybe they saw some of that data that indicated the revisions were on their way. The Fed also said they expect inflation to increase in the near term. Tariff effects, they say, are becoming more apparent. They say a few participants note that tariff-related factors could lead to stubbornly elevated inflation. And they say that evidence suggests that domestic businesses, consumers, are predominantly bearing the tariff costs. Now, that puts the Fed at odds with the White House, which has said that the tariff costs are being absorbed by foreign countries. The Fed here saying evidence suggests that domestic businesses and consumers are the ones predominantly bearing those costs. Also, they say participants observed that growth of economic activity slowed in the first half of the year. And for the second half of the year, they say several participants participants expect growth to remain slow for the second half. Two interesting notes here. One is a decline in immigration, they say, is lowering both actual and potential output growth. And also on AI, they say the risk that increased use of AI in the workplace may lower employment going forward. So two things to watch for in the dynamic in the workplace is decreased immigration and increased use of AI. Back over to you.
Steve Leisman, thank you for that update. And all eyes are now on the Fed's Jackson Hole symposium that will kick off later today. The pace of the Fed rate cut is under debate. Steve Leisman of CNBC brings us the details on the Fed's policy path and who will likely replace Jerome Powell.
Federal Reserve gathering for its annual meeting in Jackson Hole amid unprecedented presidential pressure for a rate cut and unsettled questions about the next Fed chair and the outlook for tariff inflation. A special edition of the CNBC Fed survey for Jackson Hole found respondents believing the president is most likely to pick NEC Director Kevin Hassett to replace Fed Chair Jay Powell, but they think he should pick former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh. About 70% of respondents think Powell's speech will be neither hawkish nor dovish, but actually neutral. The 29 respondents still see two rate cuts coming, even while 63% believe substantial price increases remain on the way from tariffs. On who the president will pick from among the 11 named candidates, Hassett leads, followed by Fed Governor Chris Waller, Warsh, and former St. Louis Fed President James Bullard. But respondents think the president should pick Warsh, followed closely by Waller and Bullard. Hassett drops to fourth. 41% of respondents say the next Fed chair will conduct policy independently of the president. 37% say it will be in coordination. 22% are unsure. Meanwhile, 69% say Powell's speech will be neutral, with 14% saying it will be dovish and 14% even venturing it may not be about policy or the economy at all. That would disappoint markets. Still, respondents see the Fed cutting rates by 50 basis points this year, with 25 in September and 25 in December, and 50 more next year. This is despite calls for inflation to remain around 3% this year and next. So the big question is, how does Powell make a case for a rate cut when inflation is running a percentage point above target, and forecasts are that it will remain that way this year and next? Steve Leisman, CNBC Business News.
Steve Leisman, thank you for that curtain raiser to Jackson Hole and, of course, who could be the next Fed chair. Take a short break. Cues from the commodities market on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, the Lok Sabha has passed a bill that proposes a sweeping ban on online money games. IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav said that the bill was a necessity for larger social good by curbing addiction and debt spirals. Listen in.
Entire middle class families, they are losing their entire life savings in online money games. Extreme cases are there where children commit suicides, where people commit suicide because they are not able to face the losses which happen because of online money games. That's the harmful impact which needs to be discouraged in a very significant way. Over the last 3.5 years, we have been very closely engaged with the industry. We have attempted self-regulation, but that has not really worked. There was a GST imposed, that has also not really worked. Still, the harmful impacts continue, and it's something which is very significant. MPs who have met me from across the country, across the parties, they've all been asking for significant action to be taken against online money games. Honorable MLAs who meet, and the entire society, in a sense, has this pain which is reflected in the suicides, pain which is felt in the form of entire life's money going.
So the industry is slightly concerned. They point out that we've seen over $3.5 billion in investments, direct and indirect jobs of over 2 lakh. Is that something that weighed on the mind of the government before, at the time of drafting of this legislation? How do you account for that?
So our government has been very actively promoting digital technologies, development of new technologies. The entire DPI today is known across the world, and we'll continue to do that. What's important is that the benefits of the technology should be encouraged and the harm should be discouraged, and we have a fiduciary duty to protect the society from the harms of something which is emerging and which is clearly visible today. So that's a constitutional duty which is there on the elected government. And today the Honorable Speaker also said it, expressed from the chair, that practically across the aisle, MPs have been asking for strict action on it.
Now, a group of ministers constituted to look at the GST rates on life and health insurance has firmed up its recommendations. Bihar's Deputy Chief Minister and head of the committee, Samrat Chaudhary, told CNBC TV 18 that the panel will propose to provide GST relief for both life and health insurance premiums paid by individuals. But some states had a different opinion and the council will take the final decision. Timsy Jaipuria spoke to members of this group of ministers which met in Delhi yesterday. Listen into what they had to say.
इंश्योरेंस के सेक्टर में इंडिविजुअल या उनके परिवार के इंश्योरेंस को, हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस को फ्री एक तरह से जीएसटी से मुक्त किया जाए, तो उस पर चर्चा हुई है सबका और इसका रिपोर्ट लेकर अब जीएसटी काउंसिल को मैं दूंगा।
सर, हेल्थ और लाइफ दोनों पे एग्जेम्प्ट करने की बात है।
हाँ, अभी मेंबर्स ने सहमति दी है, कुछ लोगों का अपना अपना व्यू है, कुछ लोगों ने अपने राय दिया है, वो जीएसटी काउंसिल को
जीरो कर दिया गया, मतलब जीरो
हम लोग चाहते हैं कि जीरो हो, अब जीएसटी काउंसिल तय करेगी।
And Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the updates from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. All important Jackson Hole begins today, but what are the commodities on your radar?
Oh, well, absolutely. Almost ahead of this very important meeting, we've seen most of the commodities actually start with a gain here. Overnight, you've seen gold and silver gain by 1.5%, even platinum gain 2.5%. The crude oil prices gained 2% as well. The macro really is about the Jackson Hole meeting right now and the decline in US dollar index ahead of that. But for the crude oil prices, it also has to do with the US crude inventories declining by 6 million barrels. Markets were anticipating 1.5 as a number, but you have 6. So that clearly seems to be supporting. And then it was also about monitoring the progress towards Russia-Ukraine peace deal. We are hearing various statements from those presidents, not really supportive there. But the crude oil prices have declined 10% this year until now, even as you are looking at higher supplies, OPEC continuing to restore its idle production. So there is enough and more supplies right now, and the street does not believe that Russian oil in any way will stop coming into the global market. It is expected to go to one country or the other, adding to the global supplies, and that is where the market seems to be taking relief from.
Indeed, Manisha, thank you for that update. All eyes on Jackson Hole starting today. We take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast from me and the team that put this show together. Thank you so much for watching. Bazaar Morning Call on the other side to set you up for today's weekly options expiry.